what do we do about this, right? What do we do? Because for a lot of us, and especially in like this Western concept of capitalism, and you speak with your money, and money is speech, and all of this, a lot of where we go first is, can I still buy this stuff? Right? Can I still consume this stuff? And I think that's a valid question to be asking. And I find it fascinating that we kind of came down on different sides of that conversation. But it's just one aspect of what can we do. And I loved your suggestion of, if you're spending $5, £5 on the book, donate twice that to a trans charity, to the Trevor Project, or somewhere like that.
It's like a TERF offset credit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Or even,
I like that a lot.
Even, do some research or follow some trans people on your social network or whatever,
Yeah, or buy a book by a trans author as well. Like, treat yourself to 2 books. Buy Harry Potter, and then also something from like in the same genre that you like, but by somebody who is trans. So
I love that V's strategy always just involves buying one more book. That's the solution to most problems.
Do you want to hear something really horrific? The last book that I read was Return of the King in 2006.
Well, I mean, after you finish Return of the King, there really isn't a better book to read after that. So I get it.
You're done. Yeah, Western literature.
You've read the books you needed to read.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So another thing that I mentioned on the call a little bit, and something I wanted to just get into because it's funny, is kind of the funny trends on Twitter that have been popping up, especially the one that kind of goes along the lines of, we don't know who the author of the Harry Potter books are. And I find it a funny way to implement the death of the author strategy that we were talking about, and separating the art from the artist in a way that will get under her skin, right? So there are some that are pretty popular. Harry Potter doesn't actually have an author. No one knows who wrote the books. Kind of crazy. Or, I can't believe all this time has passed and we still don't know who wrote Harry Potter. Will we ever find out? And I heard we don't actually know who wrote Harry Potter. It's a mystery. It just appeared one day, authorless.
I heard it was Hatsune Miku.
Yeah, it's that's one way. It's a small way. It's not necessarily fighting back with your dollar, but it is getting out there and making your voice heard, and showing support in a way that, if you're not comfortable getting into political debates or debates about gender or sexuality, and that's not what you want to invite into your timeline, this is a kind of very simple and innocuous way to show support, right? Of like, haha, make a joke about the fact that Harry Potter doesn't have an author. It's not going to change the nature of the dialogue itself, but it is going to signal to anybody who follows you that you stand with them, right? That you stand on their side. And that by itself can be so important to know that, oh, this person who I like, who I look up to, who I follow, knows what's going on and is coming down on my side.
For sure. I think that it can often be easy to overlook how much difference that makes. I think I didn't really understand it until getting more involved in this. But often I think you just assume that your position is taken for granted. It's very easy to assume everyone around you thinks the same as you until they open their mouth. And, if you are supportive of LGBT people, that's great. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, just not being a knob is a good way of being supportive. But sometimes just saying, by the way, I support LGBT people, like publicly as a public stance, it can really mean a lot, especially if you are like a content creator or whatever, or you have a large platform, because, there are lots of people who you kind of end up guessing. I mean, it can make you a bit like twitchy. I mean, maybe it's if you spend too much time in politics and stuff, and I recommend trying to train yourself out of this. But, you know, as soon as someone says something a bit dubious, you're like, oh God, some other celebrity's going to say something bullshit about trans people. Like, there's almost one a day.
Yeah.
And just saying, like, by the way, I'm not a dickhead, like, that it can really mean a lot to people, especially if you're creating some art that they love. Like, it's great.
There's also the option of just going straight for the jugular, so to speak. I found this one tweet that just it laid me out. I was done. This one tweet by Soulmate that says, J.K. Rowling's going through some stuff, so she put me in charge of making dumb changes to the Harry Potter universe. Effective immediately. Dementors are Latina. Hermione's now Hermione. Hagrid has fibromyalgia. Wands are called bang noodles, and Hogwarts has a billiards table. And it got so much attention that J.K. Rowling actually allegedly responded and demanded that this person take it down. She says, delete that post immediately. It's a lie, and I did no such thing. And then he says, sorry, I'm J.K. She says, thank you. And then they go, no, I mean, I'm you now. Why are you so mad about my books, TERF? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And he ends up putting up this screen cap of the Harry Potter font, but it's Giuseppe Stromboli and the briefcase of meatballs. And it's cut off on the tweet that we see here. You can see the bottom of it right now. And she just loses it. Unfortunately, it's cut off, but she was not happy about that situation.
I assumed that was fake, but I hope it's real.
I'm not sure one way or the other. It could have been a very convincing fake out, but oh my goodness. Either way, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. So yeah, sometimes just laughing at it, because a lot of the not to make light of it and not to say that there isn't real work that needs to be done, serious work, but it feels like a lot of this comes at you with the intention of knocking you off your balance, right? And to be like, I'm going to throw something else out there that's going to wreck you, and then I'm going to win the argument because you will have been tripped up. And if we can instead be like, ha, I'm going to laugh at this, I'm going to turn this into something funny that guts you instead. That by itself is a great way to kind of turn the tables a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's sometimes a bit of a preconception that, again, from the like reactionary crew, that you can't tell jokes about trans people. And it's just such nonsense. There's so much room to tell like jokes about this whole thing. Like if you follow a handful of trans people on Twitter or something, like that's all we do. So there's so much room for it, and it's, you know, it's a good situation. Sometimes it's good to make fun of shit situations, and that's keeps people going, keeps morale high. So yeah.
And then just as like a final question, Katy, as a trans ally, as a trans woman, as somebody who experiences this on this in a deep level, how can the average trans ally fight back against this kind of damage? Somebody who doesn't have a large platform or a show or a lot of money to donate to charities, or a lot of time to do this extra research and write Medium pieces, or, you know, however we are privileged in a way to be able to fight back in a larger way. How does the average person kind of do that and make a difference?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this recently. It's difficult. There's a few things. I guess if you know it, like the first thing I'd say is if you know any trans people, I guess I would say particularly in the UK, because like it's been a stressful few weeks in the UK for trans people, just reach out to them and like say that you're there for them or something, because that really can make a big difference. I mean, I'm very lucky to have a lot of very good friends who are there for me, but in the last few weeks with like the sort of string of nonsense that's happened, it's been quite isolating. So that can make a big difference. Especially some trans people are very unlucky and don't have large support networks because of, you know, prejudice, and transition's very difficult, and
Yeah.
some people aren't the kind of person who goes out and talks to people when they're facing a problem. So even if maybe you think they're ignoring you, just sending a nice message might make a big difference. And another thing that I'd recommend is, if you can and you have the time, some way talk to your politician. I think, like in the UK, we had this thing where there was this rumor in the newspaper that the government was going to announce some rollback of trans rights, and like thousands of people all of a sudden about this one issue, which the government probably didn't even think about because we've got loads of things going on in the UK. They got thousands and thousands of emails and handwritten letters and phone calls, and it makes a huge difference. Like politicians, you know, they know about the big issues like Brexit, but most of them probably don't even, they do not give a shit about trans people. And if all of a sudden they've got a load of people like yelling down their phone saying like, mate, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you going to take trans rights away? They'd be like, whoa, okay, people care about this. I at least need to do some research. And I think that can make a big difference.
Certainly.
Yeah, and then I think like learning and supporting like trans content creators and stuff can be great. Like, follow me on Twitter. That'll solve all the problems. No, you don't have to follow me, but like I think that you know, so much of what people know about trans people, they learn from cis people. I mean, I would say that's one of the main reasons the gender critical movement exists. Like you meet all these people and they're like, trans people think this. And you're like, what? Like, where have you got this from? Like one of the first like major ones of those I saw, they were like, well, if trans women are women, then how come trans lesbians don't date each other? I was like, what? Like half of the trans lesbians I know are dating lesbians. Like it's a meme. Like that, just trans people just date each other. That's like a thing. And I couldn't believe it. And then suddenly, like some celebrity tweets that or something, and they get like 14,000 likes or something. And I'm like, what? Like, and it's because they've never talked to a trans person. They get all their information from these like nonsense memes. Even just following a trans person, like even if you were skeptical about all of this, like follow a trans person, and within a week you would have learned that trans people date each other because
yes.
And they talk about it too much, and I'm sick of it. No, it's but like just learning can be great, and also like watching stuff with trans people in can be good. Like representation is quite important, I think. But yeah, I was like just earlier I was watching some YouTube stuff and got an advert of like a famous trans person here in the UK, Paris Lees, who's great. Shout out to Paris. Just like on an advert, and that like mentioned she's a trans woman in it and sort of discussed it. I just thought, God, like when I was a kid, if there was like some cool, like pretty, like smashing it trans woman just being chill on TV, that would have changed. It changes your whole perception. So I think,
as opposed to being like the villain in a murder movie or the punchline in a joke.
Yeah, usually both at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, so all those things can help, I think.
I like that we ended on that kind of a more positive note. Thank you for that. We are despite all of this nonsense and this vitriol, we are in a better place, and the trajectory is still good, and that's what is scaring these people. That's what is
it's a reaction.
Galvanizing these movements is the concept that, oh no, we are losing control, the world is changing and we don't like it. But the world is changing and we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. Pandora's box has been opened.
Yes.
Fuck you.
I like it. I want that on a shirt. Pandora's box has been opened. Fuck you.